Okay, so Mark Laidlaw joining us on the Calgary Fitness Podcast. And this one I think will provide a lot of value to people too. So I want you to give us a little bit of background of who you are and who you coach.
I'm Mark Laidlaw. I'm the head coach of the University of Calgary Rowing team. I've been the coach of the team for 6 years now. I come from, originally from Ontario. I grew up there. I started rowing. I started rowing in grade 9, so really, really early compared to most people. And I haven't stopped since. So I'm now 20 years into the sport. Went from high school rowing to university rowing, and I was on the under 23 national team for 3 years, followed by the senior national team for an additional 4 years, and then just before I went to the ended my competitive career with the 2011 Pan Am Games, and then moved out to Calgary. Started coaching pretty shortly after that. It was only a couple of years after that I started coaching the Dinos team, and it's been awesome. Actually, it's been a huge learning curve going into a head coaching role. I kind of always knew that I wanted to be coaching, but going into a head coaching role has been extremely rewarding. Lots of learning, and I don't know. It's not my full-time job, but it's definitely the most rewarding job that I've got.
So I want to know too, did you move to Calgary for the position, or was it just kind of serendipitous where you ended up getting that role when you moved to Calgary?
Yeah, no, I didn't move to Calgary for the position. I was in Victoria when I was competing, and then both my wife and I, being from Ontario, we moved back to Ontario. We lived in Mississauga for all of 10 months before we realized that the lifestyle in the Greater Toronto area just was not for us. So we lasted all of 10 months before we started looking for where else we were going to move to. And my mother lives in Calgary, so we put that on our option board and decided to come out here. Now, I was coaching. I was coaching for my high school, actually, in Toronto. So I knew I wanted to keep doing that. And when we decided that we were going to move to Calgary, I got in touch with both the Calgary Rowing Club and the Alberta Rowing Association and said, hey, I'm coming to town. Is there a program that could use some help? And I was asked if I wanted to check in on the U of C, and that the U of C was looking for a new head coach pretty soon. So pretty much right away when I arrived, I started working with them, and it was I think I was only helping out for like 2 months before I was asked if I wanted to take the head coaching job.
Do you mind if I ask what you do? If this is not your full-time gig, what do you do outside of this?
Web development, so completely unrelated.
Nice. So you create and design websites, is that right?
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. How long have you been doing that for?
Well, that's what my undergrad degree is in. It's in computer science. So, I guess that's always been my professional work. I just started working with a new company the week after my daughter was born. So,
okay,
I've been working with them now for a while. It's just shy of 9 months now. I've been working with them.
Oh, cool. Good for you. Awesome. So how many kids do you have then?
2. We've got a 3.5-year-old and our 9-month-old who just passed 9 months yesterday.
Wow. So busy household, busy
job.
job.
Boy, and he's nuts. Like, he's just full of energy. He bounces off the walls. And then our 9-month-old obviously is not yet that energy level, but she's just now started to crawl. So she's, we got to monitor her too to get into everything.
Oh, good for you guys, boy and girl. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. So I want to know, before we get into talking about rowing itself and the athletes and everything like that, how has COVID and this coronavirus, how has this impacted, I guess, the team, the training, everything to that aspect?
Yeah, I guess no sugarcoating it. It's honestly, it's been pretty devastating. We were getting geared up. There are really there's a couple of main competitions for the university team. The main competition for the university is in November. That's the Canadian University Rowing Championships. But then for us, we've focused on, as a spring race, winter spring race, there's a race in San Diego called the San Diego Crew Classic. So that's kind of our second big main marquee event for the year. And we were we were just a couple of weeks away from leaving for that trip before we were told that we could no longer train. And so everything was leading up to that regatta, and our training was going awesome. Fundraising was going quite well, and then everything stopped, right? And given the climate in Calgary, right, there's not many winter opportunities to race, and really that's our only opportunity to race on the water. We have an indoor competition, but so we haven't even been on the water since November, and that sucks. That took away the thing that everyone was looking forward to all winter. We went from obviously seeing each other every day to not seeing each other at all. So just in terms of like the lost opportunity, the lost season, that was like emotionally pretty challenging, I think. For the team has done a really good job of trying to stay in touch with each other. I think everyone's having a pretty serious challenge at like staying fit to the same level. Because as much as we check in with each other and people are staying active, it's never the same intensity. It's never the same like engagement as when you're actually with your team and when you're with your mates and everything. So yeah, it's been crap. I don't there's no sugarcoating it. I don't know. It sucked big time. As a coach, it's felt I feel just like completely like gelded of all like ability to do my job. Like personally, I feel pretty useless as a coach. I mean, sure I can check in and have video calls and things like that, but most of the team, well, we ended up lending out a lot of our equipment, but still most of the team doesn't have a rowing machine for themselves. And even if they do, it's hard for them to like film themselves, for example, for me to give feedback. Like it's been really difficult for me to feel valuable. Like, I mean, I felt pretty useless with the team, to be honest.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that goes for anybody in any fitness experience at this point, right? I mean, when you talk about sponsorship too, like a professional athlete right now, I mean, that's how they stay, I guess, right? That's how they stay employed is, the fundraising and everything like that. So we get that it's a completely hard time for sure. I mean, tell me a little bit about your 2019 though. It sounds like you guys had a pretty success. Do I call them seasons?
Yeah. So our seasons really follow the academic year. So we go from September to April, and yeah, the 2019-2020 season was going really, really well until all this hit. And I mean, even at that, we only really lost a month. It just happened to be the month where everything was going to happen. So our fall was quite good. The most exciting thing I would say for the whole year was that for the first time ever, we took a crew to the Head of the Charles, which is the largest regatta in the world. It's in Boston, and it's an amazing event. Like of all the stuff that I've personally competed in, I think it's my favorite regatta of all of them. Like, it's just massive. It's everything from juniors up to masters rowers, so age range is enormous. It's mostly a collegiate regatta, but it's open. There's lots, and it's the most spectator friendly and the most of like a festival atmosphere of any regatta that I've gone to. Like, rowing is not really obviously the most mainstream sport, so crowds don't tend to be much. But at Head of the Charles, there's 7 bridges along the race course, and every one of them is packed with spectators watching. A lot of them know what they're watching. Some of them don't, because they just happen to be students at one of the schools in the area, and whatever. It's a cool opportunity to have some beers and watch some sporting event happen. So it's amazing. And this was the first time ever that we sent a crew to Head of the Charles, and just going there, I think, was a big milestone for the team. But the result was amazing. Like, our women's 4 came 3rd in the collegiate women's 4. Which was amazing. And that's actually despite the fact that they had a collision in the race that cost them about 30 seconds. So
no way.
Yeah. Like, because we'd never gone before, we're an unseeded team. So we had to, the Head of the Charles has done time trial format. So one crew goes, next crew goes, and it's a race against the clock. But because we're unseeded, the way that Head of the Charles does it, the top half automatically gets an entry for next year. And then the bottom half, it's just a lottery. So we had never gone before, so we were a lottery team. So we started 24th. And knowing how far back we are starting, if you're a good crew, which our crew obviously was, you're likely going to have to pass a lot of people. And passing costs a lot of time, costs you speed because you got to go kind of out of your way. And there's always the risk of collisions and things like that. And so fortunately, I'd sort of warned the team about that, but it did happen. And yeah, they lost about 30 seconds, which is amazing that they still finished third. And second was only, I think, 4 seconds faster than them. So there's no question they were a good crew, and it makes them excited to go back too.
That's so cool. What a cool story. I think that when you leave for any international events like that, like it's a bonding exercise, and like to come and like see success out of that, I think is a huge, huge deal. I kind of want to talk about the training itself. I mean, let's talk about how the big question for me is how does rowing as a team, or even individual rowing, how does that compare to like the rowers you see in the gym? I'm going to guess there's a huge difference there, right?
Yeah. Like rowing machines that you see in the gym, I mean, we do use them as our training tools as well. Like it activates the same muscles. So you can get away with like rowing poorly, right? Like you don't have to row well when you're rowing on a machine. But if you do know how to row, the machine is an excellent analog for the boat. Like it activates the same muscles. It's really, really a great tool. But of course, there's a lot more to it going from the machine to the water. And I think even for people who do row regularly, the difference between the machine and the water, it's massive. Balance is obviously the first thing that jumps out, but balance is a huge, like it's very, very difficult to balance a boat. And timing is pretty critical to balance. So we do practice even on the machines rowing in time, but slight timing differences on a machine, whatever, it just looks bad or it doesn't feel like anything. Whereas in the boat, a slight timing difference feels awful. It can make things feel incredibly heavy for one athlete, and just like, yeah, it's awful.
It's tough.
Yeah. Now that being said, rowing in time on machines, like consciously or subconsciously, I mean, you're not actually in the same boat, and so there's still not the same feeling. And by feeling, I don't mean physical feeling. Like there's not the same connection with your teammates as when you're actually in the same boat. So, we try to create the environment so that they're as, connected to each other as possible. And to really get the idea that we're still in this together, we're still a team, we're still a boat or a crew. But realistically, as I said, it's either conscious or subconscious. It doesn't matter. There's a difference to being in a boat with somebody and having to move exactly the same as that person than just being on land and trying to move exactly the same as that person.
And being synchronized with someone too, like that's got to take a lot of work. I mean, you mentioned balance, you mentioned, the timing, but I think that, being in synchronization with other people, that takes a lot of work too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's, it's the tiniest of timing differences can make a huge impact on the crew. And it takes ages to develop it really, really well. But when
I noticed,
awesome.
Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, when you do get it, though, yeah, it's really cool. And it's not just cool because you start going fast. I mean, that's awesome. But it becomes really rewarding because you realize that you're creating something with somebody else.
So when choosing a team, Mark, I want to know, like, does height difference, does weight difference, does that play into things? I mean, I'm 6'3". If I had a teammate who was 5'7", would you see, like, how does that work?
It depends. I mean, I'd say right out of the gate, like just on first impression, I'd probably try to put people who are reasonably similar together. But But just because you're 6'3" and somebody else is 5'7" doesn't necessarily mean that you row as long. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that you're rowing 8 inches longer than that person is rowing. Like there was a guy on the national team who was a couple years older than me. As a heavyweight rower, he was the Olympic spare in 2004, I guess 2008, 2004. He was the Olympic spare. He was 5'11", which for a heavyweight male rower is ridiculously short. I mean, I was a coxswain and I was taller than him, so it's crazy. But the way that he rowed, he tended to lean back really far at the finish, and he had a fair amount of flexibility to reach really, really far forward. So he rowed effectively very, very long. Now that said, it was an uphill battle for him his whole career because he was so short. I mean, he had to really, really work to that. So yeah, we're trying to put similar bodies together, and rowing's fortunate for now that we still have a lightweight category and a heavyweight category. So there's even that break. If somebody comes in, they're 5'7" and they're 160 pounds for men, they'll be slotted into the lightweight category. Now on our team, it's not exclusive. If you're a lightweight, either man or woman, if you're a lightweight, it doesn't mean you can't race heavyweight. It just means you have the opportunity to race lightweight. So on our team, at least, the fastest people are going in the boat, regardless of whether they're the biggest person or the smallest person. And our first measure is based on power. Like we'll do fitness testing on the erg, and that's generally the first measure. Like that kind of narrows the focus of the group that might be in the top boat, and then from there it's more based on water performance.
And I want to know, how do you test that? Is it a distance thing? Is it a time? Is it a VO2 max? Like, how does that work?
We have a few testing distances. So like Rowing Canada has a battery of tests. We regularly do a 1-minute test, a 6-kilometer test, a 2-kilometer test, and a peak power, which is just 10 strokes and as hard as you can go, the single stroke that's the highest. Really, for our selection for like the university championships, it's the 2-kilometer test that matters the most. It's a 2K race, so 2K test is the one that matters the most, really.
And I want to know too, like, okay, so I enjoy rowing quite a bit, but I'm not on the water, right? To be honest, I think that balance is what it frightens me, to be honest with you. But I do enjoy rowing on like, a Concept 2 or a water rower or something like that. And I enjoy that 2K test for sure. Tell me a little bit about how you can get better, just the general population. How could you get better at a 2K test? Like, for example, I think, and Mark, please, like you're the head coach and everything, like my 2K time, like I think the best I got was, if I remember correctly, it was 5:50 or 6. To be honest, I don't even want to, but it was sub 7 minutes, which I think, for me, it was good. I'm 6'3". It was fun, but like, how do you get better at it? And what are some good times that your team is tracking right now at a 2K test?
We have a pretty big range right now. Our best currently on the team went 6:19 last year. We have a couple of guys who are right around the 6.5 minute mark. And then we've got a fairly big gap. And like our goal, really, our kind of benchmark for our lightweight men is a 7-minute mark. To be truthful, that's really not that competitive for a university lightweight, but it's kind of where we are. And how does one get better? Well, cop-out answer is that it depends, because it depends on what part you need to get better at. So if you're there's like rowing is a power endurance sport, so there's power involved and there's endurance involved. So I mean, we get people showing up who are very, very strong. So the guy who's 6'19", he's a big dude. He's both strong and fairly fit, but he's not the strongest guy on the team. The guy who's the strongest on the team as far as power, his power is ridiculous. Like it's huge. It's comparable. It's certainly comparable to guys that I was on the national team with, if not better than many of them. Like his power is ridiculous. but his aerobic capacity is not very good. So his 2K time is not really that good, given how strong he is. So for him, he needs to be doing a lot of aerobic low intensity stuff to start getting his aerobic base a lot better.
Yeah, and that 2K test is just, I mean, it's like you said, it's a power aerobic sport, and that 2K test, I think, is a good measure of that too. Another one that we do, or that I enjoy doing, is the half K, right? Because that's just, I mean, go as hard as you can too. But how do you measure power in your athletes? Like, is it wattage? Is it, a good split time? Is it, how do you measure that?
Yeah, I mean, really, they're all the same. I mean, a good split time is a higher wattage, which is a higher calories per hour. I mean, they're all essentially it's just a different number. But that being said, when we're doing most of the stuff that we do is based on split time. So a 2K test, what we're looking for is what was your time. 6K test, what we're looking for is your time. The only thing where we actually look at watts is for the other two tests, the peak power, so the 10 stroke. You just row 10 strokes as hard as you can, and we're looking for the one stroke that has the highest watts. And then the 1 minute test, we're looking for the average watts over the minute. But really, you can derive that from the split, or you can derive that from the distance rowed, and it's all just a measure of power.
So what is a good split time? I mean, that's going to differ on, I mean, your 6K, your 2K, and your fastest, right? But if you were to, let's say somebody wanted to go on for 30 minutes, like, should they be trying to do like negative splits, or how do you derive what is a good split time? Consistency?
Yeah. Because we tend to get athletes who are coming from all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of levels. Like that's one of the cool things, I guess, about the rowing program is that it's like we're kind of our program is like designed to make the athletes versus like a hockey team or a soccer team at a university where it's designed to like select a soccer player or select a hockey player. Like they're expecting people to come with a certain amount of skill and they'll select the people out of that. Whereas it's great when we get people who are fit and strong and all that already, but we're not really expecting that. We're expecting to get somebody who's willing to work and then mold them into a quality rower. So I know it kind of sounds like a cop-out answer because it's not really a firm answer, but really consistency is pretty important, and I'd say it's probably the first thing that we do want to teach people is how to pace themselves consistently over whatever distance, whatever time, whatever effort we're looking for. But like that comes a little bit with the practice that we do, right? The more you do it, you're gonna learn what you can do. But I guess the best way for me to answer the question about like what is a good split and what are we looking for is to really kind of take it on a case by case and look at a particular example. So there's one guy on our team who just joined this past fall. He's a pretty athletic dude. He was a swimmer before. He's really tough. He's gung ho. He used to use the rowing machine as a warm up, so he was kind of familiar with the machine, but not really familiar with rowing. So he was like. He was just blowing his brains out every time that we do a test. He would shoot out of the gate and just hold on for as long as he could. So he would go fast, and then just tank. And so for him, it was learning, you got to hold off just a little bit. Like you can't do that. You can't just string yourself out and wait. You got to find a pace. And so for him, it was learning that like what's actually your appropriate pace. And then he improved massively in his last test when actually myself and one of his teammates, we sat behind him on the test for the first like 2 minutes. We were saying like, slow down. And I could see that it was stressful for him to slow down, but he ended up significantly faster because he then had the energy to keep it. So yeah, I mean, what's a good split? I mean, well, okay. So frankly, like the between the four categories, lightweight women, heavyweight women, lightweight men, heavyweight men, and really heavyweight really just means open. Lightweight women for a 2K test. If by good, we mean, let's say, winning a medal at the Canadian University Championships. Probably looking for around a 730 or lower. So let me do the math on that. So that's a 152.5, I believe. No? Yeah. Is that right? 152.5, I think is.
You're asking the wrong guy for math, my friend. You're asking the wrong guy.
Well, 145 is 7 minutes. So 7.5 times 4 is 30, right? Yeah. Okay. So 152.5 would be a good split. 7:30 time. For heavyweight women, realistically, we're looking for 7:15 or lower. And then men and women, it's about a minute apart. Like that's a general wag. So for heavyweight men, we'd be looking for around a 6:15. Lightweight men around a 6:30.
I think that's so cool too, is to like, this is, in my opinion, it's a sport that is, it doesn't get a lot of attention, right? But at the same time, it's one of the I guess sports where you're using your entire body to get this done, right? I mean, so I want to know specifically about the training itself. Like, what kind of training program are these athletes going through right now? Maybe not right now, but let's say prior to COVID. Let's talk about what kind of training they did. Was it specifically legs? Was it specifically aerobics? Like, what did you guys do?
We broke our season into a few phases. So during the fall, like our main competitive time, so September until the end of October, beginning of November, pretty much all of our training was just in the boat. So it's just rowing. That's not a particularly long amount of time, right? 2 months, really just focused on getting rowing muscles, rowing skill higher. After the University Championships in November, had a couple month period where we're a little more focused on strength training and actually not rowing. So we had a little while there where it was just like anything that wasn't rowing. So go spinning, go running, whatever. We played some games as a team. To be honest, that was a little more of just a mental break. But at the same time, we do want to stay fit and strong. So we do have a strength trainer on our team as well. And they do, a lot of Olympic lifts to focus, on the posterior chain, right? So legs, back. So then our third phase, I would say, was just toward the end there. Where we were doing a lot more aerobic work, but it was more rowing specific aerobic work. So we started to get more onto the rowing machine more instead of running and spinning. We were still spinning, but more focused toward rowing specific. But it was still fairly low intensity and a lot more distance, a lot more duration. So we were just trying to build the aerobic base more at that point in the winter, while still maintaining the strength training to try to increase power. Now we were just, like, as I said, when we found out that COVID was ending our season, we were just moving into the phase of like really ramping up the intensity, at which point we would have pretty much stopped all cross training and we wouldn't have stopped strength training, just the strength training would have become different, would have been more supplemental to performance, instead of like building strength, just trying to tap into the strength and getting the like performance power.
So I want to know you specifically, Mark. I mean, you've been out of this. Sorry, I shouldn't say you've been out of the sport. I'm not sure if you're on the boat or anything like that. But what kind of training are you doing personally? Are you working out from home? Are you staying in? I mean, with 2 young kids, it's gotta be a grind right now, hey?
Yeah, actually, it's really fun. My 3.5-year-old loves running. I mean, it's crazy. He was like, we would go out for walks and he would just start running and he'd say, "Dad, come run with me." And about a month ago, he was doing that every time we went outside, and he was running in his winter boots, and we thought that was a little bit ridiculous. So we went online and he picked out some running shoes that he wanted. And ever since his fast shoes, as he calls them, arrived, like he's always asking me to go for runs. And it's hilarious for a 3.5-year-old, but we have been doing that, and he's up to running for half an hour now, which is like unbelievable. And yeah, and it's not super fast, but he keeps going, and it's pretty fun for me to run with him because it's the ultimate stop and smell the roses, because we'll just be running and he'll see something and I'll say, "Oh, look." I'm like, okay, all right, we did.
Yeah, I've got a 3-year-old too. She's almost 4, and same thing, man. Like same thing. She's like, "Run with me, daddy. Run with me, daddy." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, let's do it." So the other morning, it's funny actually. I was working out outside just in front of my house, and at the end of my lift, I decided to do some hill sprints. We've just got maybe a 4% grade on our little pathway in front of our house or our sidewalk. So I did 15-second sprints, and she's like, "I want to run with you." So her and I just held hands and gave her up this hill, right? So I mean, that's the fun part too. As a parent, to see your kids excited about this, I mean, that's pretty cool. Hey.
Oh, it's awesome. We ran past some couple who was out for a walk, and he announced to them, "We're just out for a run. We're just out running." And I really wanted to explain myself that I'm not pushing my kid into this. He loves it, and he's actually pulling me. But we're just like kept going. So that, I mean, yeah, he keeps me pretty active just doing that. But running is the activity that I personally like to do the most. Like when we're not in the gym and stuff. So yeah, I've been running a fair amount. There's a woman who I used to work with, and she and I used to run together all the time at lunches and stuff. And so she and I are still going back and forth and like kind of comparing runs with each other. But yeah, I've tried to get in on, like, we've got a Strava group for our rowing team, and so everybody's tracking their time, and we've got like leaderboards for who's doing the most minutes per week. And I'm not winning, but at least I've got myself on that board to try to show them that I'm doing stuff too.
You're showing up, right? You're showing up.
Yeah, exactly. Like well, I guess I sort of do feel a little bit of a responsibility to do it, but it's not just that. I mean, I actually really enjoy it, and of course it's an ego thing, I guess. I mean, it's really fun when you can actually beat your athletes and say that you did something faster than them.
Any weight training? Are you doing any weight training at home or resistance training?
No, personally, I don't. I mean, my wife tells me to all the time, and she tells me I need to, take a run off and do some weights instead sometime. No, I'm at the fortunate point in my life where, like, I don't need to do training for a specific performance. I can do the exercise that I want to do for the enjoyment of it. And frankly, I like running more than I like doing weights. So I do that.
And I think that's important too for a lot of people to remember, is like, just because your program says XYZ, you also need to make sure that it's fun, enjoyable, and something that you can do for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah. I mean, the best program in the world is the worst program in the world if you're not going to do it. Just as a bad or an inferior program can be superior if you're going to do it. Really, I really think we overlook. Science is fantastic, and the science of training and everything, I don't argue with it. I mean, it's a lot of stuff has been proven just fine, but there's an overlooked, like, emotional, psychological component to a certain training program. And if something's not enjoyable, even if it's the right program, you're still not going to perform to your best.
Oh man, I think that is a gem right there for a lot of people to remember too, because I think a lot of people try to put a square peg into a round hole, and it's like, guys, like, if you're not enjoying it, don't do it. And like, too, you have to understand, the day of your training program, if you're not feeling like going 10K is running and you want to stay at home and do yoga instead, then do the yoga, right? Like that's I think is important to remember. I think, in my opinion, walking, getting outdoors is like number one that everybody should be doing, no matter what, no matter your fitness ability. Try to get your steps in for the day. I think that is, it's better than strength training. It's better than anything. I mean, you're getting your vitamin D, especially now this time of year.
Yeah, and exactly, especially now, something is better than nothing, right? Whatever. just get up, do something. So I say, especially now, but I mean, anytime. Like some people, especially if someone's taken time off from training for a while and they're not as fit as they once were, and they're like, a lot of people get really discouraged with that, right? Like coming back from either an injury or coming back from a break can be tough because you don't see the performance that you had before you took the break. And that could be really discouraging, and people are like, oh, I'm not doing 60 minutes like I was before, and I'm not doing it. And they almost defeat themselves because they say like, well, what's the point to doing it if I'm not doing it what I was before? It's like, well, but you're still like, it's still better than nothing. Like and I'm not really, I'm saying that can sound like a really kind of trite thing to say, like that it's better than nothing, but it is better than nothing. And like, just get up and it builds on itself anyway. Like what you do today, it's better than nothing, and you'll feel better about yourself later. Maybe you will do more next time, maybe you won't, doesn't matter, but doing something is still good for you.
And I think too, like, don't overjudge yourself either, right? Just because you don't do it to 60 minutes and you maybe do 15, like, who cares? Just do it, right? If you're tired at the end of the 15 minutes, then that's fine too. Mark, this has been amazing so far. Is there any? Okay, I had one more question before I send you on your way. I wanted to know, where do you anticipate the team getting back to work? Do you think September? What's kind of everything? What are all the signs telling you right now?
Yeah, well, so the university team doesn't exist throughout the summer. So pretty much all of the athletes who are on the university team go to their local rowing clubs, most of them to the Calgary Rowing Club, and train through that. So the Calgary Rowing Club is struggling just as much as everyone else. They're not on the water right now. So as a team, even if they were on the water right now, the U of C team wouldn't be together right now anyway. But they would be training, they would be rowing. So the Calgary Rowing Club currently is operating with the hope that they can start rowing in July, I think is the earliest that they're realistically expecting. But we have the extra question. It's not just whether we can get together in the group and train. We also have a question of like, well, I don't know what the school is going to do as far as classes, and that will likely have an effect on what we can do as a team. So right now I'm operating under the assumption that September will come just like any other September, meaning the students will be in classes and we'll be able to train just as we would in previous years. But I have a pretty strong concern that won't be the case. To be honest, I kind of hope that more classes will go to remote classes, and if they can stream, or especially if it can be recorded and watched later, that would be awesome, because that would give us far more flexibility of when we can actually train together as a team. So selfishly, I kind of hope that that's what happens with the classes. And right now, it's like there's so much uncertainty, and everything trickles down from that. So it's uncertain of whether or not our competitions will even happen. And if they do, which ones? Like head of the Charles in Boston, we're supposed to go back there, but like the US is a big pile of crap right now with this virus. And even if we're allowed to travel, I'm not sure that it's the responsible thing to do. Now, October's still 6.5, 7 months away. So no, not that long, 5. But anyway, so anything can happen in that time. But those are definitely huge questions hanging over the head of this program.
Mark, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Are you on social media? Are you active there? Or where can people learn more about the team or you?
Personally, I'm not really. I'm just on Facebook, but that's just a private page. I do have a blog that I haven't updated in a while, but I need to. I have a blog called letterrun.com, so LETRRUN.com, which is a rowing term that actually means stop. Actually, it's specifically a Canadian rowing term. Americans and British say it differently, but that's what Canadians say to mean stop rowing. But the university team, though, the Dinos rowing team, has an Instagram account. which is the handle is Dinos Rowing. We also have a Facebook page, and then the University of Calgary has a page for the rowing team, which is at godinos.com, and then just select the rowing program.
Mark, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to stop the recording, but just hang on for 1 sec, okay?
Sure.